45 years, zero name changes, new offices, more staff, improved technology to better serve you. Education, services, investments. Think real estate, think Marshall Reddick. Brokerage, property management, private lending, creating financial independence through real estate since 1979.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us in regards to learning a little bit more about investing in Houston. I'm the Space City Sports and Southern Hospitality Capital. Very excited to share with you guys some insights and incredible information on the Houston market as it relates to real estate investing. We're going to have some people trickling in here over the next minute or two, so let's give it just a minute, and then we'll get started right at 5:02. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for hanging out, and can't wait to start. Actually, while we're waiting, guys, if you could just write in the chat that you can hear us, that would be wonderful. Thank you much. All righty, let's get this show on the road. Rachel, thank you for joining me. I see you're sitting over there in Houston while I'm out here in California. Rachel's got the sun beaming in on her, and it's humid and hot out in Houston, so one of the benefits is this. But Rachel's going to share a lot here about the real estate investing market. But first, I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Chris Carlson. I've been a licensed real estate agent helping investors since 2012. I have managed to do a couple of transactions over my career, mostly with investors. So everything from doing like multifamily value add stuff and some flips and buy and hold and all across several states. And I've just been really lucky to help folks build their wealth through real estate. And I'm very passionate about that, and would love to meet some of you guys after the webinar. I've obviously spoken with a few of you beforehand. Got a couple clients on here. Thank you for joining, and would love to chat with you about your goals and criteria after this. And of course, maybe sit one-on-one with you if you're interested in Houston with Rachel. So thank you again for hanging out with us. For those of you that are a little newer to Marshall Reddick, love to give you some information on what we do here. So we are a one-stop shop for real estate investors. We offer 4 distinct services. First and foremost, here are real estate brokerage. So we help our clients buy and sell real estate. We are real estate agents in a multitude of different states and offices, helping our investor clients identify great deals. We do primary sales and purchases as well, of course, but our bread and butter is helping the investor. Now, when you buy an investment property, and if it's the very first investment property, you may not know this, but only 10% of the battle is finding the deal. The other 90% is managing the asset, right? So you need great property management. You need a really good team behind you to find the tenant, screen the tenant, draft the lease, and deal with all the maintenance stuff, because you're going to have that property for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, right? So we offer property management for our clients. So if you're thinking about buying out of state, rest assured we have got a fantastic team behind you to manage that property and eke out every dollar of income. We're also a private money lender. So we have clients that are home flippers and developers that need capital to go find those deals. So we lend money to residential real estate investment projects that are non-owner occupied. Of course, we collect a nice healthy interest rate from that. and we distribute that interest back to our capital partners via our mortgage fund. So we have a mortgage fund for accredited investors that are looking for passive income, and we lend out that capital to our borrowers and pay out a quarterly distribution to our capital partners that are involved in the fund. That's a very nice, healthy return. I know Rachel's invested in the fund. I'm invested in the fund. I own real estate as well as investment property, but that can be a little bit headache inducing, as Rachel knows sometimes. But the investment fund is very passive, and it's a nice mailbox check way of making money. So if you're looking for something like that, we can offer that option for you guys. As I mentioned, we do have offices all across the country in markets that are great for investing. Very, very deep roots here in Texas. I'm sitting in our Newport Beach office, our headquarters, but we have a multitude of offices in Texas, as well as in Cape Coral, Florida, Nashville, Tennessee, and Clarksville. Now, we don't just choose these markets by accident, right? We're very intentional about how we choose these markets. And these are the main drivers behind the analytics of when and where we decide to set up shop. Why have we chosen these markets? Well, they're great for real estate investors, right? And they share these commonalities, which is excellent job market. Rachel's going to get into the job market more of Houston, but that's such an important factor when considering investing. Is there high unemployment or low unemployment, right? Now, you also want to make sure as an investor, especially in residential real estate, is there demand from renters, right? Are people going into that community, moving into that state or city in the droves, or are they fleeing it, right? Do they have net positive migration? And what does the vacancy rate look like? Now, I think economic diversity, there's maybe no, for me personally as an investor, greater importance than economic diversity. I'm a very cautious investor personally. And I want to make sure that if there's any disruption to the economy, that there's a lot of players in town that have a huge amount of employees, right? And if there's any disruption to the market dynamic, right? If the aerospace or tech sector gets disrupted, well, there's government jobs, there's transportation jobs, there's manufacturing jobs too, as a solid base for employees. So I think a great example is like Detroit, when we offshored a lot of those jobs in the 70s. And we saw that it took decades for Detroit to recover financially. So be in a city that's not overly reliant on just one employment sector. Housing affordability, I'm sitting here in Newport Beach, and sometimes it gives me anxiety just looking at home costs out here. It's challenging to have the conversation about affordability in California, but in the markets that we've selected out of state, that's a primary factor because there's a lot more runway for appreciation. And we've got people moving to those states, to Texas, to Tennessee, to Florida, because affordability is an option for them, right? They can go find a house for under 400,000, under 300,000 as a primary residence. And that's going to drive rental demand as well. And landlord friendly, there's a big question mark. The answer, is it landlord friendly in California? It's absolutely not. And it absolutely is landlord friendly in a place like Houston. I like to say that in California, we measure evictions in months, if not years. And in Texas, we measure evictions in days and weeks. So it's a lot more advantageous to own residential real estate from that perspective in markets like Texas. Strong education, of course, important. The way that I look at education is when you invest in a place with universities, they're creating white collar jobs, white collar employees, right? The future employee, and those folks are going to have nice, high paying jobs. And what are they looking for? They're looking for good quality housing so they can, commute to work. And that leads to appreciation. Those people are going to be home buyers in the future, right? And they're going to be happy to pay a little more in rent for a nice, stable place to live in a good, safe community. So strong education is super important. And last but not least, reliable property management. I do work with folks that have invested in maybe some smaller towns and cities all across the country. And a common story that I hear is that they're looking for a new property manager and they can't find one. And when you're in a really tiny town, there might be only one property manager in that whole city, right? And when they decide to retire, you're kind of out of luck. So it's really essential to invest in markets where there's more than just one property manager, and you're going to find that obviously in a town like Houston where there's 2.3 million people or whatever the population is, right? There's going to be plenty of property managers to select from. And we, of course, Marshall Reddick, have property management set up in Houston and can manage your asset, but we're not the only folks in town. I love sharing this slide. These are all the folks kind of doing the hard work to eke out every penny that we can for our clients, our residential real estate investors that we manage properties for. But we also have our private money lending team. We've got our marketing team, our agents and property managers, CPAs. So there's a whole host of folks here all across the country trying to help our clients out. Rachel, I was looking for you in one of these pictures. I don't see you. Would you not make
I'm not in this particular page, but I'm in quite a few of the other team pictures, but I didn't make this slide this time.
I didn't make the cut this year. I don't know. Rachel's been with us for many years, so I'm not sure. But anywho, I'm tucked away somewhere back there. But I'd love to introduce the wonderful Rachel Page. She's been really helpful for my clients when thinking about investing in Houston. And I, can't sing your praises enough, Rachel. And I'll let you talk more about your hometown market.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for the intro and warm wishes. It's good to see all of you guys here tonight. I'm surprised Chris didn't mention at the beginning too. He's kind of an expert on the area. His wife's family is from Houston Metro too. They are from Katy. So he's very, very familiar with this market. It's very helpful when talking to clients as well, just his expertise. So for those of you I haven't met, I'm Rachel. I've been on the team for about 5 years now. I actually started as a client in 2012, and just like Chris, we all have touched the different facets that Marshall Reddick has to offer. The only thing I personally have yet to do is to borrow from Marshall Reddick. We're private lenders, and we're part of the fund, and also have bought and sold property with Marshall Reddick in a few of our different markets. So by the way, if I look a little bit rosy, our air conditioning in the building turns off a couple hours ago. So it is warm, like Chris said.
You said my wife is from Houston, and Houston, from what I remember, is the town of big hair because the humidity comes out. And
yes, it is humid today. Well, before it gets dark too, I can show you guys. I'm actually sitting in our office on the waterway. So we are literally in downtown The Woodlands. We're located near a restaurant that was doing live music, but thankfully it's quieted down a little bit, so you'll be able to hear. So yeah, that's a little bit about me for those of you that I haven't met. And then let's see if it'll let me jump on in. Chris, I don't know if
there you go.
There we go. Oh, here we go. I can just do the slides at the bottom. All right, cool. So this is kind of what we're covering this evening. For some of you, I know you've been to some of the events I've hosted before. This is a new deck. There's a couple slides that are similar when it comes to the mapping area, but other than that, it's entirely new content. I try to keep everything fresh for you guys. I know a lot of you guys enjoy our events, so enjoy. This is all new info. So I'm going to start with kind of just doing a high level of why my family moved here. And then this evening's topic, we're talking about a particular facet of Houston. Space City is one of our nicknames, our sports teams, and Southern hospitality with the city, some popular suburbs and market selections. And then I don't know that we're going to have time for the client success stories, but we'll see. Okay, so I actually refreshed all the family pictures for this presentation too. I've been doing them for a few years, and I was like, ooh, the boys look like babies in those, so time to redo them. So this is my family, and these pictures were all taken in Texas. So yeah, it's been a really.
You got to get Steve a new hoodie. He's wearing the same one here.
I know, it's so funny. These pictures, the top left picture was taken on New Year's, And then the one on the bottom, we were in Cinnamon Shore. That was for Thanksgiving. So I know, I guess I'll make it look like he has one outfit. But these are my sons, George and John. And yeah, it's just kind of, and I'll get into this in a little bit too, but Texas, much like California or New York or a lot of the other states our clients are located in, there's a lot of different vibes depending on where in the state you are, you know. So there's some beaches and different areas. Houston's pretty green as well. So, whoop, sorry, I skipped a slide. So that's what I was just gonna say. Before we came out to check out the area, I pictured Houston like thirsty cowboys, West Texas, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Houston Metro is very lush, very green, very wooded. When you're flying in, it's incredibly green. I always tell my clients it's like a forest that doesn't have a ton of topography, but as you get a little further north, there are some hills and stuff, and there's actually quite a bit of water. So it's surprisingly beautiful. When I have clients come out and visit, they're like, oh wow, it's actually pretty here. I'm like, I know.
You can even surf, right?
You can, in Surfside. My husband goes down. Well, we go as a family. We try to go in the summer once a week. It's about an hour and a half drive, but yeah, it's not like Southern California, but there are ways. So yeah, Houston, it's a big area. If you started at Lake Conroe, which is kind of the tip of Houston Metro, and went all the way down to the Gulf without hitting any crazy traffic, it would take you about 90 minutes to get to Galveston. So you can kind of see the footprint of Houston Metro. It is very, very huge. I would say the overwhelming majority of the property that we manage in our portfolio falls within Montgomery and Harris counties. There's some outliers that are here and there, but that's what I would say most of our clients make their selections within. Those two are kind of the most common. Okay. Sorry guys, we're having a little tech here. Okay, so Houston, how Houston impacts the Texas economy. It's not a small amount. So we have a big, like Chris was saying, economic diversity is hugely important. I personally have never seen another city since getting into real estate. When you look at the job diversity pie, I wish I would have put that image in for you guys to see. It's in our market data packet where it's incredibly diverse. Our highest industry is medical, and that's around the 12% mark. So and we're the largest medical center in the world. So if an entire section just shuttered and left, like Chris was saying, you still have the vast majority of the job market, which obviously that's not going to happen. So we're not dependent on like one major employer or two. It's very small slices of the pie chart, which is great for you as an investor. So Houston's really big. We're the largest city in Texas, and we're the 4th largest city in the US. So like Chris is saying, we have over 2 million residents. It's really large. We're a Fortune 500 hub. We're a really young city, so that's great for a lot of things, you know, for.
What is drawing the younger demographic to Houston, would you say, Rachel?
I would say there's a lot of things. It's funny, a lot of my clients are Marshall Reddick clients that started as investors, and now they're choosing to relocate here because they work remotely and they don't want to pay state income tax. So unless they have a tie that they can't leave an income tax paying state, a lot of people are relocating to give themselves a slash in their cost of living, and B, just being able to retain more of their income. So I'm seeing a lot of young professionals. I've helped quite a few of my younger clients move out here, specifically from California, and just see a huge boost in, you know, building their personal wealth, cutting their expenses, increasing their net income month over month. So, but yeah, the job market, if you weren't a remote worker, we have a very strong and thriving job market. So there's a lot of people that move to the area for work as well. And yes, we touched on the med center too, but. Okay, so this is the little market data packet you see at the bottom of every property you're going to see on our website. I don't know why I looked today. They don't show 2024 yet, but I pulled the 2024 stats on the next slide for you so you can see them. So as you could see, there was a, you know, growth until we had the correction, which again, Houston has such a is such a strong and steady workhorse. When I say correction, it's basically a stabilizing year. So in 2023, we had a 1.3% dip. There's a lot of markets that had 20, 30, 40% dip. Like it's just, you can't continually grow year over year. You have to have a stabilizing year. So this year, or I guess at this point, this was last year, 2024 had a 1.3% increase. HAR, which is our MLS, predicts that this will be a steady year as well. So December had, as you can see, a 16.3% year over year increase in sales too. So definitely it's kind of a sweet spot for my buyers, because I'm usually able to get their offers accepted on the first, if not like worst case scenario, the second offer usually, and we're able to get a lot more aggressive offers accepted. So to me, we're in the sweet spot of exactly where you want to be with the market, versus a couple of years ago, you'd have to write a lot of offers and you probably weren't going to get any concessions. So it's my favorite part of the cycle.
It looked like supply is at 4 months of supply, and just for any of the investors on the call here, 1 to 3 months of supply is definitely going to be more of a seller's market. And then once we hit 4 to 6, it's a much more balanced market. 6 months and above, that's when you get into like a true buyer's market, right? So we're in a much more balanced market in the Houston area. And the last thing that I want to point out on this slide, that's just like, it just blows my mind every time, is looking at 2008 and 2009.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
That's, if you look at California or Arizona or Florida or 39, 45 other states and 1,000 other metropolitan areas, that number is going to be substantially larger than negative 0.59% in 2008. It'll be 50% downward spiral.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that is barely impacted by the financial crisis, which is just a huge testament to the strength of the economy and the strength of the diversity of housing, or diversity of employers, I should say. So.
Absolutely, that's such a good point. And I would argue or state that there's been a huge influx of companies to Texas over the last decade, specifically even in the last 5 years. So while this is how they performed at that point, and since then I would venture to guess we would be doing even better. So it's a really strong basis to be building off of. So I refreshed this as well. This is our Houston cheat sheet. I don't want to get too, I don't just read the slide for you, but you can kind of see some of the various popular communities all the way up from, we have clients buying in Montgomery, which is just south of Lake Conroe and surrounding Lake Conroe. You see a lot of master plan up there. Magnolia is another popular area. There's a little bit of everything with that. The Woodlands this is kind of like our northern star child. That's actually where I live now. I have a couple of properties out here and we swapped. So Cypress is another really popular option for our clients. I have a client who just built this gorgeous custom built home. I wish I would have put an image of it in the presentation. It was stunning. But yeah, Cypress is popular for a lot of my clients who work in the city and they don't want to deal with commuting, or they don't want to live in the city, but they want a quick drive. They have very, very good schools too. One of our property managers in Austin, actually, she ran part of that school district for many years. So it's a great area. Kind of as you get into like Single Ranch, Katy, Fulshire, lots of really cool master plan properties and communities with great amenities, but insurance can be cost prohibitive. So there's just all sorts, this entire area, essentially there's a little bit of everything. And at the end, I put some property picks in for you, but I think the important thing is, like Chris was saying, if you're interested in pursuing any market, whether Houston or another, just us getting to know what you're looking for, because truly we can get you in a property under 200 if we shop you competitively, all the way up to, as high as you'd like to go out here too. And depending on your strategy, there's a bunch of different ways we can go, and a lot of these communities encompass a lot of that. I'd say real quick, just to point out, Spring is one of our most popular, if not our most popular investment city too, and we'll get into that a little bit as well.
Rachel, I got a question in the chat. And by the way, folks, if you have any questions, there's a little spot where you can write those in. I'm kind of monitoring them. So we got a couple questions here. One is insurance more challenging to find in Houston? And do you experience any difficulties with insurance?
Great question. Yes and no. Definitely, I would say we're in the middle, and by we're, I just mean America in general, and a little bit of an insurance crisis might be a dramatic word, but there's just insurance is a difficult industry at this time. But we do have a lot of great broker partners that we're able to shop around with a whole bunch of different providers. Because of that, though, I would say, you know, how I touched on earlier, that most of our investors are choosing Montgomery County and Harris County. Montgomery County, hands down, bar none, is going to give you the best rates because you're so far, point blank, you're far away from the Gulf. It takes 90 minutes to get to any waves, which little waves, but you know, you're far. So insurance actuaries are looking at that. And before any of our clients are going to get into a property, we're looking at flood zone maps too. That's really important. I want to get them into a property that's in a X, like a no flood zone. So, and some clients choose to add a flood policy as kind of a added precaution. It's a couple $100s to do that, a few $100. But that's a great question. Yes and no. It can be more costly. And there's also clients that want a higher deductible, but a cheaper annual rate. So you can customize that depending on what's more important to you.
Awesome.
Good question. Good question, guys. Sorry, Chris, I do not know what's going on with my little mouse, but let's see.
I can move you. There you go.
All right, so Space City, this is, you can go to the next slide too. This is one of Houston's nicknames. We have quite a few, the Bayou City, but Space City, and this is funny, it's not even in our top, this is, I believe, their #3 industry of last year. So it's definitely one of our more popular industries, but it just goes to show like what, not even a primary industry, how much money it can bring to the area. So Johnson Center is tied to NASA, and as well as NASA. These are huge income driving companies and organizations that bring money to Houston every year. We'll get into that in a sec too. We have a huge aerospace, astronautical, and aeronautical industry here, and just a lot, you know, a lot of different jobs. So as far as Houston itself, like I was saying, it's a huge hub for space exploration. Johnson Space Center is here. We also hosted last year the International Space University. There's just a really large workforce tied to space here. So the Space Center in Houston specifically, can you go back for a sec, Chris? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. I just didn't read that fast. They generate annually 118 million, just shy of 119 in revenue, and just over 1,700 jobs. So it's a great employer for the area as well. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. Yeah, so NASA is hugely impactful to the area. So they're contributing just shy of $5 billion in economic income to Texas every year. So absolutely insane. And their jobs, either through direct contracting or, you know, various roles, they're responsible for over 50,000 jobs in Texas too, which is pretty wild. So the Space Center, like this was on the last slide too, it generates over 118 million every year. So that's pretty awesome. And that's specifically in Houston too. Yes, that's for Texas, but that's bringing a lot of that income here to Houston in particular. So the Space Center, there's a lot of civil jobs there. This is crazy to me. I'm like, how is there 110 astronauts? But there are apparently 110 astronauts and over 11,000 contractors too. So
I would imagine a lot of those are like white collar positions, right? Like engineers, folks that have a lot of training in their respective field that probably are paid pretty handsomely.
Yes, I have a childhood friend from Seattle who's like second in line at Mission Control. I'm like, is this for real? He literally sits like on the floor when they do mission control with the astronauts. It's pretty cool. So
neat.
So the spaceport. So one thing about our space industry too that was interesting to me, and actually it's not limited. I would say in all of our major industries, you see this with medical and energy as well. But a lot of these companies and organizations do collaborative work, and they'll get a grant and work on a project together. They'll get a patent and develop a product together. So the spaceport, it's their center for collaboration and innovation. It's really important for, you know, space development worldwide. And they're doing a whole bunch of different advances, like I was saying, like with aerospace, manufacturing, education, low Earth orbit, lunar operations, all of that. So it's a lot of this occurs when these companies, again, they're doing collaboration, and you'll see it across the board where they'll have multiple companies that put forward these products. Okay, so yay for space. So sports, Houston's, we are actually not the largest city in Texas for professional sports. Dallas has one more than we do. But we actually have 5 professional major league teams. So we've got the Astros, the Texans, the Rockets, the Dynamo, which is our soccer team, and the Dash, which is the women's soccer.
So, I have a question for you, Rachel. Did you and your entire family switch your sports allegiances when you guys moved to Houston, or?
No, Seahawks for life, ride or die. But no, the boys are excited about Astros. The little kids are, they're all about Astros at their school. So yes, it's definitely a huge sports culture out here, and it's interesting. It starts very young. It's important in the South. So these are the major league teams they've got. So it is interesting though, in addition to just being fun and recreational, they're a huge economic driver for the area too. So this was staggering to me when I was researching this, that annually it's bringing in north of $1 billion per season to Houston, not just Texas. And last year, the Final Four brought in over $270 million too. So that's just wild. It's not just limited to the event itself, and obviously all of the retail surrounding it and parking and, you know, housing, like the hotels, all of that. It floods over into all areas of the Houston economy. So it's pretty impactful. And like Chris was touching on earlier with colleges, we have a lot of colleges down here. So this is just a few to name, though some of them out here as well, but there's a lot of educational opportunities. There's a lot of, you know, it's a young city, but also a very highly educated city too. So lots of opportunity for further education here, and sports teams at a lot of these colleges as well. So all these pictures were from last year. We ended up moving during rodeo this year, so unfortunately didn't get to go, but Houston has the biggest rodeo in the world too. So it's very fun. If you ever get the chance, I've had a lot of clients that want to come out and see the area, and like the best time of year to come is in March, because you get a huge musical performance. You get to see a full, like literally the largest rodeo in the world. And it's, imagine the biggest fair you've ever been to with the biggest like art exhibit and food fair. It's so much fun. So
my wife's first concert ever was at the Houston Rodeo, and I didn't know it was like such a big thing.
Oh, it's huge. Do you know who she saw?
I do. Kid Rock.
I saw him in Nashville. I didn't see a show. I saw him at a bar in Nashville. That's funny. Small world.
The one and only.
So yeah, this just goes to show though too, as far as how much money it brings to the city every year. This is from this last rodeo, almost just under 600 million in economic activity. So that's just absolutely astounding how much it brings in. We literally bringing in people from around the world. I was more of a city girl. I grew up in Seattle and then lived in California for 18 years. So I didn't realize so much of what goes on at the rodeo too, as with the livestock show, is they're literally trading and breeding livestock too. So you see all these ranchers come in from around the country, and it's very fascinating. You can walk through all the livestock, the whole area, and just kind of watch all the deals being made. It's really super expensive and exciting to see go down. So it's a great economic boost for Houston every year as well. And Southern hospitality. This is like, I always heard of this until we moved to the South. It is very, very, very much a thing. You know, like the culture down here is extremely warm and welcoming. That's why a lot of people that end up moving to the area end up staying. So far, of everyone I've moved out here, I haven't had a single person look back or want to relocate. They all love it here. It's very much a culture of welcoming people. And the exciting thing about Houston is that most people, with the exception of Chris's wife, are not from Houston. They're from other places. So, you know, it's a very easy place to find community, and being like a good host is an important thing here in the South. So this was super exciting to me. I don't know that I know enough about food to say I'm a foodie, but I do appreciate watching all the cooking shows and the awards. And so Michelin just officially last year came to Houston, which was super exciting. They had their inaugural awards actually in Houston last year as well, and we got 6 restaurants with stars, including the barbecue restaurant in Spring that a lot of my clients come to when they come to town. So it
What
was
is
a
the name
very,
of that restaurant?
pardon
Do
me?
you know the name of the barbecue spot in Spring?
Corkscrew, yeah.
Corkscrew. Oh my goodness. I didn't even know they were giving out Michelin stars for barbecue now. That's amazing.
You know what's so funny? They have a secondary award called the Bib Awards, which I kind of was surprised they didn't give them that one. There's a bunch of other barbecue ones that ended up on that list, but for whatever reason, they got the full-blown star at that one. So, but good for them.
All across the world for a Michelin star restaurant. That's amazing.
I know. I figure it's gonna be hard to go eat there for a while.
You're never getting back in there.
No, never. So I thought this icon was super cute. So this is from Country Living Magazine. This is the top Southern quality for each state. So for Texas, it's good home cooking. And this is true. You know, the street that we lived on for years with our neighbors, there was constant dinner parties and crawfish boils, and we did barbecue competitions, and people would smoke their meats. And it's very much again, an entertaining and hospitality type of area.
I'd rather take good home cooking than politeness. I'd rather have that quality.
Yeah. I would say people are polite here too, but so I had to throw Beyonce in here too because it made me smile. But in all reality, she is kind of a big deal in the city. So she's from Houston, and she's done obviously had a lot of musical hits and done big things with her career, but she actually also does a lot of charity down here still to this day. So she's born and raised here, obviously one of the most famous musicians of all time, and she has a charity that's done a lot around the city, a lot, not just in Houston, but she's put a lot of money back into the city to take care of it. So she's done scholarships. She did a huge grant funding to the University of Houston Law Center. The last one was probably my favorite because every time we drive back from the beach, the overpass goes around this huge apartment building that she and her former Destiny's Child members funded this. It's essentially an apartment building for at-risk people that are experiencing homelessness for youth. So it's a beautiful building, and it's right in the heart of the city. So it's just cool to see, you know, a musician that's giving back, especially in their hometown, and kind of making sure that they take care of where they came from, you know.
Yeah, reinvesting back into their community. That's actually really amazing.
Absolutely. So I put a little bit more oomph into the property picks on this one too, just to kind of give you guys some high level options in each of the areas too. So Montgomery, as we were saying, that's kind of the tip top of Houston Metro, where like near Lake Conroe, and then, you know, down from there, it's pretty huge. Now, kind of what we were saying earlier, there's a little bit of everything within the price points too. So Montgomery can mean some of the most affordable and amazingly priced properties, and it can also mean some of the most luxury and unattainable or expensive properties. So we've been getting some more requests to put some more appreciation-based inventory in some of these presentations too. So I put a couple of kind of more aggressively priced properties, and then I put an appreciation-based one in as well. So
awesome. We actually have a question in the chat.
Sure.
About property taxes. In relation to just like how are they calculated, and what is the average property tax?
Great question. So it's not the same as in California, where it's just a set, straightforward way that they do that. So in Texas, there's just shy of, I want to say 4,800 taxing authorities. So you have the state, But then when you get your tax bill, which you do get every year, it's assessed, you can see it's literally itemized by school district, the like police service, there's literally all these itemized, and it'll vary depending house by house. Like even in my neighborhood, my former neighborhood in Spring, there was a more established neighborhood right across the Greenbelt. They did not have a lot of the taxation items that we did because they came, the city and development, when they came in and built our community, had to level like a forest and lay the plumbing. So we have in Texas, it would be like what in California they call Melrose. We have like called mud districts. Not everybody has them. If you don't, you can save a lot of money. It just depends. So I think that kind of, I don't know if that directly answers the questions. It just truly depends property by property, and we can pull the tax assessment. If it's not a new build, we can literally pull the tax bill from the year prior. I do this for my clients anytime we're preparing an offer, so we can sit down and analyze it as well. I never want there to be any bad surprises. And as far as the state of Texas goes too, Marshall Reddick started offering this where we're automatically helping our clients contest their taxes every year. So when your tax bill comes, this company will essentially go to bat on your behalf to help save any tax increases. So does that answer the question?
I think it nailed it. I mean, I can attest to this because I own a property in San Antonio, investment, and I went from $5,600 a year in property taxes, which is roughly around like 2% of the assessed value, to $3,800 after contesting the taxes. So we had a really big reassessment, and that's not something you can necessarily do in every state, because it's fixed in California essentially, right? Like it's very much is what it is. Whereas it's being reassessed in these markets. So you definitely have an opportunity to challenge the property taxes. But we always want to take like worst case scenario, right, when we're analyzing deals.
Absolutely.
So that way you have an accurate depiction of cash flow. And then this is more of a broader, like theoretical, I guess, debate, which is, you're going to pay maybe a little bit more in property taxes in California or in Texas than you would maybe in like Tennessee. But the question is like, how does the appreciation in Houston compare to a market where there's very little property taxes, right?
Absolutely.
You're more than likely going to have higher appreciation to account for that because they don't have an income tax. People are flocking to these markets because of that, and a small price to pay is the property tax. So you still have a lot of appreciation to make up for that, and obviously there's a lot of demand in rent. So just kind of pick your poison, I suppose, and just have your eyes wide open as to all the different factors. But
It's
anyhow.
so true. And also, a lot of times, not always, but oftentimes we tend to have stronger rents in this market as well. Like our rent to purchase price ratio is pretty darn good in Houston. It's hard to beat the strength of our rent to purchase price. Now, areas where sometimes we can't come out on top are property tax, which there are definitely pockets where there's better taxes than others too. Thankfully, I'm pretty seasoned at looking at that. I find that's way more important to investors than it is to primary buyers, and a lot of whom I work with are investors. So yes, we can definitely keep an eye on that. This particular property would be like one of those budget picks. This property is priced at $222, which I'd say is a fair, it's below median for the market. But this particular builder offers what we call, oh my gosh, why am I blanking? What's it called? the forward commitment.
Yeah, forward commitment.
Yes, so the builder will go in, and it's basically a way where they can legally circumvent the 2% cap to contribute to buyers on a purchase if it's a new construction. So by committing to the financing up front with a particular lender, they're able to put a lot more money down toward the house, which can really positively impact your numbers. So in this case, it brings your interest rate to 4.75%. So you see this with builders periodically. but it's just something to keep in mind. So this is one of the options in Montgomery. We have 3.
Quick question in the chat here for you is, what is the average length of time to find a tenant? Which I think is a great question.
Great question. That's a really good question. That's impacted by a few things. I'd say first and foremost, with impact, traditionally would be tied to the list price, truly, regardless of the time of year that you list. I have clients who still would like to go more. Honestly, not to get too convoluted in my answer, but when we're going to present an offer on a property, I'm looking at the current rental inventory. So we're ideally not buying in an oversaturated neighborhood. I'm running rental and sales comps and sending them to my buyers so they can analyze them and have a copy of that. And then once you close escrow, we're refreshing that. The leasing team will rerun the comp. So if you go on the more, this is my strategy. I'm getting ready to rent one of my properties right now. I would always personally rather have an aggressive price with a little hotter price to move my property. I think it's important for owners to calculate their vacancy per day cost with their expenses and find out, is it worth it? Like sometimes it makes sense to test the market for a week or 2 just to kind of see how it responds. Sometimes you can get the price, but a lot of times a sizable correction will help move that. So I'd say those, but time of year can make a difference. The December historically is a little bit of a quieter month. People just with holidays are less likely to be moving then. So if it's December, I'd say give yourself a solid 6 weeks at least. But the nice thing about when you're financing a property, your first payment is covered. So if you close mid-month, your mortgage payment's not due till the month after that. So it gives you comfortable margin while you're getting that first tenant in place.
Yeah, you get a little bit of breathing room, and then another, advantage of pricing your property pretty aggressively, meaning, it's very competitive in the marketplace, is that you get your pick of the litter with tenants, right? Like it's very important for me to have a kind of a selection of the best quality of tenants, and I want the best tenants applying at my property, right? The only way I get that is by getting their eyeballs on my listing. So sometimes it's smarter to maybe be $25 under market, right? And have like 2 or 3 applications with people with great credit scores that you're like, just know for a fact are going to pay that monthly rent, right? So
absolutely, that's very, very legit. So this is from the same builder too. It's another property. It's super cute, very like little cottagey kind of product. The one obviously this price point is amazing too. It's under 200. It's 190. But there's no garage on these properties. So just something to keep in mind. But a lot of times the builders that are like, this builder is like a regional builder. So he's able to offer a little more competitive pricing than some of the national chains.
Awesome. One question that we got is, we did talk a little bit about insurance. Is it challenging to get insurance? And one question that we have is like, why would the insurance be higher in some areas than others, right? Like what costs the increase? So go for it, Rachel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do have, I would say, a little more exposure to this. My husband works in insurance, so I see hundreds of these policies locally every year, and they're not a captive carrier, so they're from all kinds of carriers. Because insurance actuaries don't care that you're in the nicest part of a county that's prone to a lot of flooding, things like that. They just map an area or a county, and they're going to assess your rates based off of that, and based off of, so for pre-owned properties, if a client is buying a home that's been owned before, the rate is determined, it's kind of like a Match.com. The rate is determined by the insured's past insurance history and any claims they've had, which kind of sucks that that's the way it works, because it's not your fault if you have to use insurance that you are insured on, but it's just the way that it works. And then also the claims history on the house. So they're able to see a comprehensive history, and from those 2 things, they will generate the rate. And that can vary significantly company to company. So that's the beauty of kind of shopping around. But I think I mentioned this earlier, a lot of my clients would rather have a lower annual policy cost and a lot higher deductible, and that keeps their rates down. Like one of my clients had, shockingly low rate in Montgomery recently. Like it was close to $1,000, which was less than my primary. I thought it was erroneous, but it wasn't. It was through the builder. So it's definitely doable. You just have to kind of shop around.
Yeah, maybe also an argument to be made, like choosing locations that maybe are further away from flood zone or the ocean, right? Where there could be more hurricane risk. And a lot of the places that you've identified here tonight are, you know, an hour away from the water, right? Tens of miles, right? So
yeah, the furthest south I put on here is Houston. So, you know, the last property I put on there was just one of the appreciation plays. Obviously, this is a negative monthly income. This is in a very nice neighborhood. That's constant feedback we're getting from investors that wanted to play, especially investors. We have a lot of people. I've had a couple recently that are doing a 1031 exchange, and they're going to have a heavier down payment where they're less concerned about cash flow on a traditional 30% down. Like there's some very nice properties in that 4 to 5 range that you can get, you know, some really strong rents on. So just things to
great point. That's cash flow negative with 30% down, right? If you're doing a 1031 exchange, you might just be buying multiple properties in cash, right? And then your cash flow is positive. So
yeah, absolutely. Definitely. So Houston, that's kind of our star child tonight. These are all photos from the city, and that center area is one of my favorite parts of the city. It's near the zoo. It's really beautiful. If you go any given day, there's people walking and running and biking, and there's golf courses, and it's a really pretty part of the city. But yes, this is probably the best price duplex I've seen since I started selling real estate with Marshall Reddick. So these units are gorgeous, very modern, very what you'd picture for, you know, California or just more of a city vibe. They don't have the appliances included, I believe, but that's or not appliances, like a refrigerator. That's a, you know, $1,000 fix. So the rents we calculated very, very conservatively. They're beautiful. It's a great area. I would say this would be a market we would probably consider this to be a B, maybe even a B- market. It's safe. It's older. It's a kind of an area that's being gentrified. You see this a lot in older parts of Houston where developers are coming in. There's a lot of people that work in the city and are not interested in commuting, but they want a nice place to live. So in full transparency, a lot of times when my clients are more, you know, focused on cash flow or a cash flow play, you need to go find those B- neighborhoods to get those numbers to look really good. So this is a fantastic price. I mean, this is the price of a single family home for a duplex.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I also haven't seen many new construction duplexes priced below $500,000, let alone 385. So it's a good one.
It's incredible. So that's another thing though, like when you meet with Chris or if you meet with me, like it's just really identifying your strategy. Like to me, it just like every client's different. Some people want, you know, they're okay with the long-term, ride it out, watch that part of town improve. Some people are like, absolutely not, give me A to luxury. That's all I want, you know? So just things to keep in mind. This is a listing we have in Houston right now. It's a beautiful townhome community. It's in North Houston. So you have one shared wall, but it's a gated community, really close to the city. It's kind of like that sweet spot of you're nearby, but you're not like right up in the mix of things. So slight cash flow negative. I also I try my best to always be super conservative in my estimates. So with a lot of the other rental comps, you would be about at a break even, but I would rather be conservative with my clients to be, you know.
Let's always choose worst case scenario, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So I know we're running a little short on time, so I don't want to hold you guys up too much, but Spring, like I was touching on, this is one of the most popular areas. If you're going to go pre-owned, I'd say Spring is ideal. Like it really has some ideal parts. There's a couple pockets where the taxes are just so low. Both the properties we own in the area are in Spring. And they route to pretty good schools, and there's just some pockets of rentals that work really well for pre-owned. So this is the property picked falls into this particular neighborhood. We actually manage quite a few properties within this neighborhood. This is a crazy tax rate for Texas. 1.57 is very, very low. So I love this community because it's very close to the Woodlands, but it's not in the Woodlands. So I mean, it's a 7-minute drive into the Woodlands, but you have a lot more green space. They've got a great park. My kids love this park. And it's a really pretty area. You can get, some of the homes are only a couple years old too. So it's a great option, low taxes. So this property pick, I don't know why it hasn't moved, but it's fantastic. I've walked this property a couple times and it is very much turnkey. It has hardwood floors. It's freshly painted. It would be a perfect rental. It's a very conservative list price. You know, $250 is a really great deal for this area. Like this would normally, a price point like that, you'd have to get a little more rural. This is like very much in the mix of things, and your numbers look great right out of the gate. So this is a fantastic pick.
And it's in that sweet spot of being a 3-bed, 2-bath and not too big, right? 1,500 square feet, kind of a perfect size.
That's going to appeal to like everybody. So the Woodlands, I just wanted to pop this in here that I'm literally sitting from the building you see in this photo. So if the next slide, I think, is when our CEO came to visit in the, this is our building here. So it's a great area, fantastic area. And it's also, we have such easy proximity to Houston. We can be there within, you know, a 30-minute drive. It's quick. You can hop on the toll road. So it's definitely a great area.
And you got a river. You can commute to work via kayak.
Stand-up paddleboard. So this is another appreciation pick. This is in Grogan's Mill, which is the original village of the Woodlands. This house is gorgeous. I think that this would be another property where I think you could easily be like well into the positive cash flow out of the gates, but again, I want to be estimating really conservatively, but this house is fully renovated, and there's properties in this area that are selling for well over $1 million. So the properties where you have opportunity, like really, the neighborhoods where the opportunity I'd say is the strongest are like the original villages, because you can get the worst house in the best neighborhood, you know, where you're down. Like there's a house on my street that just sold for $1 million, and I bought mine 3 years ago for 505. So, you know, it's not a bad thing to have that.
And like you said, it's different strokes for different folks, right? Depending on the criteria. Like it, you know, if you bought a Class A or luxury property in California, you'd be break even. Let's tell you that much with 30% down. You'd probably be negative by the thousands. So if you can have that same philosophy and apply it to a place like Houston and be break even, I think that's brilliant, right?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. This is just to show you the geographic areas of both of the properties. And I've had investors buy properties right next to, actually literally on my street and a block over from my Woodlands house too. So it's exactly what Chris just said. Depending on what the strategy is, there's, you know, properties for everyone. We'd be happy to do a deeper dive. It's a lot easier to give you a much more in tune review of everything, knowing your personal goals as well. But yeah.
Awesome.
And we don't have time for the client relocation today, but I did just help
I'll get the good people their last 3 minutes here quick. So well, we obviously just covered a ton. Thank you so much, Rachel. It's incredibly informative, and always just an opportunity for me to soak up information. Thank you. We obviously are educating folks every day through webinars, but also with financial calculators, and we bring on CPAs and 1031 accommodators. So please jump on our website and look at old videos that have relevant content, articles. A lot of this information is like evergreen. We have free market data packets that go into like even more depth than what we've covered here. Now there's no replacement though for like meeting Rachel, who's a local and lives and breathes and sells real estate every day. But this is a really good place to start. If you are looking at a market, you need to know these things. You need to see this information before you make that decision and invest hundreds of thousands of dollars. Don't invest in a real estate market just because like your grandma like went to high school there, right? Like you should know all of these factors that we discussed. And you can get this information on our website, but I'd also obviously take advantage of speaking with Rachel and myself in greater detail. And then we've talked a little bit about Class A, Class B properties. To go into more detail on how we actually determine that, I highly recommend grabbing this link, going to marshallreddick.com/ebook, downloading that. It's going to really dive deep into the metrics, the algorithm for how we calculate property classes based off of the Metropolitan Statistical Area Sales Price. That sounds fancy, but it's very simple, I promise. And how we determine if an A-class property or a B-class property is going to be a good fit for you based off of your goals for appreciation and cash flow. I mentioned, of course, meeting with myself and Rachel, and this is what you can expect from that meeting, which is a free consultation. It's understanding really your goals. And once we understand your goals, we can evaluate some realistic options. What type of property you're going to buy. Do you want more of a cash flow property? Maybe you're nearing retirement and that makes more sense for you. Or maybe you're in your 20s and you're buying your first property and appreciation is all you care about because you're going to let that thing ride for 20, 30 years before you even consider dumping it, right? Selling it for a big profit. So we will then decide on a time frame that's also realistic based off of your goals, and we'll set your criteria, identify the right market for you, whether that's Houston or anywhere else that we operate, and introduce you to amazing agents like Rachel and of course other players like our lenders and our insurance folks and title reps, all those people that make a real estate transaction happen. So this slide is really important to me. I really encourage you guys to do your due diligence when thinking about what type of team you want to structure around you when you buy a real estate deal. And the best way to do that is look at reviews online, right? These are real reviews written by clients that are 90% happy. Obviously, every company is going to have a negative review, and that's how you know it's legitimate. So read the reviews. Learn about who Marshall Reddick is from our clients, telling you about what type of experience they had with working with Marshall Reddick. So last but not least, feel free to reach out. Here's our contact information, and we will let you guys have the remainder of your evening. And thank you so much again for joining us. We all hope you learned something, and you're gonna get a quick little form to fill out. Feel free to leave your feedback and any additional questions you guys didn't get to ask in the chat or that we didn't answer, please write that in. And thanks for hanging out with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks guys for coming. We appreciate it and have a wonderful night.
Have a great night. Bye.